Think about the way that you hear music. If you don't pay attention to a song, you're not really going to understand the message that they're trying to convey. Similarly to how a book would use tone and message to convey information, music also shares the ability to communicate with an audience like that. From the military drummers of the past to modern day musicians, music has always been used as a form of communication, whether it's used to help give instructions or communicate an idea. Music has affected my life for as long as I can remember now. I have always been one to appreciate the media as a form of art, and I've studied music personally for some time now. In my speech, we will look at different examples, how they display themes to influence our listeners, and by the end of the speech, I hope to have my listeners see music as a form of communication the way I do, and look at the ways that it was used throughout history. When Africans were brought to America as slaves, many of them would come from different cultures with their own language barriers, rhythms, and traditions. The music that the slaves would bring to the harsh environments weren't just sounds being made to pass the time. According to an article from the Maryland educational system, they, the slaves, could provide rhythm for repetitive chores such as working in the fields. Songs could also celebrate important events, helping people remember their history if they did not have a written language. Songs could also express emotion in the same way that poetry and drama do. Music would also be used with slaves as a form of communication during their escape. Using secret codes, they could also portray religious idols and instructions throughout the messages in their songs. Jump ahead to the 19th century. When the country was in the middle of a civil war, militaries of the past always had a drummer boy as part of the ranks to send commands and orders from the front lines from the officers to the troops. Drummer boys had the responsibility of providing different rhythms to tell the troops whether they needed to advance, fall back, or whether it was time to move to a different formation. According to an article from the Washington Post, this practice would be performed by underage boys who would soon become soldiers during the Civil War. These boys played the part of the drummer boy. Soldiers would listen to the patterns on the drum and understand strategies, and similar to how a quarterback would instruct his team to perform a certain play to get past the opposing team. Many modern-day musicians also see music as a form of communication. The call and response form of music is an improvisational style most popular in the jazz and blues genres. This style is utilized when one player will begin a certain rhythmic or melodic pattern which is understood by other musicians to play along on and add what they see fit as a different layer on top of the first to make a collective and build off each other's ideas. Jazz is the most popular staple genre of this technique, often using the musician's ability to improvise their own music and personal motifs as a foundation for the song. The players will spend time cultivating their skills in order to work together to communicate with each other in order to perform this style live. On a larger scale, we can look at music not only as a way to communicate with one each other, but also look at it as a way to call out social reform. To explain this, let's think about the music that came out in the 60s and 70s during the anti-war movement and civil rights movements. Many tracks and records came out around that time that were considered to be direct protests of the Vietnam War and exclamations for universal rights for all races. Among these songs were rally cries such as "If You Love Uncle Sam, Bring 'Em Home" from Pete Seeger, a popular anti-war ballad that was played and performed all around the country, toured, or James Brown's hit track, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," which became an international civil rights anthem. Tracks like these wouldn't just influence audience to protest in the past, but also begin to influence artists today, such as the critically acclaimed 2015 rap album To Pimp a Butterfly from Kendrick Lamar. This album often used direct samples from those tracks in its own music to compare and contrast the civil rights movement to the modern-day Black Lives Matter movement. Music has always been used as a form of communication, and today is no different from the past. I believe that music will eventually continue to evolve with human intuition. Our future will use music the same way to communicate that we do, and the way that we always did.